Welcome to This Explainer. Today, we're going to investigate something that literally every sports fan lives for, yet very few truly understand: the massive, earth-shattering upset. I mean, we usually just write off these moments as lucky flukes, right? We call them miracles or chalk it up to the magic of the cup, but what if they aren't? What if these phenomenal sporting miracles are actually measurable structural phenomena? We're going to look at the hard data, the microsociology, and the tactical breakdowns to see exactly how David beats Goliath on the football pitch. Okay, let's dive into this. It is the ultimate question that completely stunned the sporting world during the 2016 European Championships. How does a tiny island nation manage to eliminate England, the very inventors of the modern game, and then go on to draw against a powerhouse like Argentina in the 2018 World Cup? We're going to answer that by deconstructing exactly how an underdog weaponizes its culture, its psychology, and its tactics to dismantle an absolute giant. So, here's our roadmap. We'll start with the ultimate football upsets, then break down tactical traps and the role of fear. After that, we'll dive into the actual science of team spirit, explore the historical tradesman advantage, and finally, we'll rethink the elite football systems that basically dominate the world today. Part 1, the ultimate football upsets. To really wrap our heads around the mechanics of an upset, we need to contrast these massive, elite footballing giants with our primary underdog case study today, Iceland. 340,000. That is the entire population of Iceland. To put that into perspective, they were going up against England, a nation with vast, almost limitless footballing resources, billions in broadcasting revenue, and a massive population. Later, in the 2018 World Cup, Iceland faced Argentina, a country of 44 million citizens with some of the greatest individual talents in the history of the sport. The macro to micro juxtaposition here is just staggering. But as you'll see, having a drastically smaller pool of players can actually be turned into an unprecedented psychological advantage. What's even more fascinating is the number 2. That is the number of jobs held by Iceland's coach at the time, Heimir Hallgrímsson. No way, right? He miraculously balanced managing a national team on the biggest stage in the world with his other career as a part-time dentist back in his hometown. As he put it, the volatile world of football coaching means you could wake up tomorrow without a job, so dentistry was a great way to relax and ensure some job security. I just love that. It perfectly encapsulates the grounded, amateur ethos that permeated the entire Icelandic squad. Section 2, Tactical Traps and Fear. Now that we have the context, let's look at the tangible on-pitch action. We really have to explore how rigid tactical structures and, essentially, the fear of making mistakes dictate the flow of these seemingly impossible games. And this brilliantly illustrates exactly what happened on the grass during that infamous Euro 2016 match. England suffered from complete tactical paralysis. Their 4-3-3 system became incredibly slow with the super predictable buildup. They had a huge imbalance in the wide areas, zero half-space penetration, and they were forced to just play aimless long balls because their midfielders were entirely inaccessible. Conversely, Iceland deployed a highly disciplined 4-4-2. They utilized a brilliant low block, compressed the space perfectly, and engaged in collective pressing that completely neutralized England's numerical advantages. England's players got stuck out wide, became frustrated, and started shooting from random, poor areas. Iceland played with cold, fast-brained clarity, while England basically succumbed to the sheer anxiety of the moment. Section 3. The Science of Team Spirit. So we've seen the physical tactics, but now we need to move down to the psychological layer. We constantly hear pundits talk about team spirit, but it's actually a quantifiable, measurable asset. To really grasp this, we need to define a microsociological term: symbolic communication. These are the rituals, gestures, and physical cues used by teammates to convey shared meaning, build bonds, and generate momentum. In the heat of a loud, chaotic match, talking is often impossible. Players survive fateful, high-pressure situations by reading these subtle physical cues: a thumbs up, a high five, a clap on the back. It's how a team instinctively acts in accordance with the mood of its members. Now, what's really interesting about this slide is that researchers literally tallied every single subtle gesture made during the 2018 World Cup match between Argentina and Iceland. They used a microsociological lens to count acts of symbolic communication minute by minute. We're talking about everything from showing acknowledgement to physical touch to signs of joy and even showing frustration. They wanted to see if the invisible force of team spirit could actually be tracked in the hard data. And look at this massive data disparity. During that match, Icelandic players initiated 81 positive gestures toward their teammates compared to just 25 from the Argentinian players. So what does this actually tell us? Well, it shows that Iceland actively generated short-term momentum by celebrating what researchers call small wins. Even just clearing the ball for a corner kick was met with high fives and collective encouragement. It created this emergent, contagious team spirit. Meanwhile, the heavily favored Argentinians were isolated. When they missed opportunities, they looked down, completely unsupported by their teammates, which just fed into their frustration and an inability to pull through adversity.
Section 4. The tradesman advantage. Let's move to and see how this builds.
To prove this isn't just a modern phenomenon, we're going to look at another legendary underdog. We're talking about the 1967 Lisbon Lions, the Celtic team that absolutely shocked the world by beating the mighty Inter Milan. As this quote captures perfectly, these Celtic players were tradesmen in origin. They had worked in shipyards and coal pits. They came from the exact same working-class streets as their fans. Inter Milan, on the other hand, were expensively assembled, full-time professionals playing the highly disciplined Catenaccio system under the highest-paid manager in the world. But Celtic's working-class collective identity bred a really unique fearlessness. In a coal pit, you rely on your mate, because a weak link could literally get someone killed. That deep mutual reliance translated directly to the football pitch.
The shared background gives Celtic what is beautifully described as fearless intelligence. Think about it. Fear is a cognitive impairment. It shrinks your vision and makes you panic. Inter Milan's entire system relied on making opponents anxious, but Celtic wasn't afraid. They showed immense patience to keep the ball, refusing to be provoked. They used constant, intelligent rotation that dragged Inter's rigid man markers completely out of position. Most amazingly, they used overlapping fullbacks, an act of supreme tactical confidence that totally outfought Inter's defensive trap. Finally, they used a coordinated, primitive high press, hunting in packs. They broke the rigid rules of conventional defending simply because they possessed a collective brain convinced of its own worth.
Section 5. Rethinking elite football systems. Let's zoom all the way out now. If underdogs with collective identities and fearless intelligence can dismantle the game's greatest giants, what does that say about how we develop players today? So the crucial point is we need to contrast elite academies with the Icelandic model. Today's elite academies separate talented kids from the masses at age 5. Studies show this leads to burnout, anxiety, egocentrism, and it turns a game of play into grueling work. The Icelandic model, however, is a sport-for-all system. It mixes participation with performance. It relies on an amateur ethos where players have known each other since childhood. It emphasizes communal dispositions and playing for the sheer joy of it. This black swan of elite football proves that the highly professionalized, dehumanized talent factories might actually be stripping away the essential team characteristics needed to succeed at the highest level. Need proof of just how uniquely connected this Icelandic culture is? Just look at the pub strategy. Coach Heimer Hallgrimsson used to go to a local pub near the National Stadium before games to show fans motivational videos and literally reveal his starting lineup and strategy. He did this for 7 years, handing over incredibly valuable tactical information, and yet not a single detail ever leaked on social media. It was built entirely on pure community trust. That kind of unbreakable communal bond is exactly what translates to 81 positive, supportive gestures on the pitch when the team is under fire. Which leaves us with this final, profound question. Does hyper-professionalism strip away the collective soul needed to overcome true adversity? We've seen today that upsets aren't just accidents. They're the result of clear tactics, measurable team spirit, fearless intelligence born of shared backgrounds, and a fundamental joy for the game. When sport becomes a sterile, hyper-professionalized machine, it might just lose the very magic required to survive when the pressure is highest. I hope this explainer has completely changed how you watch the game. Thank you so much for joining me, and keep your eye out for the next great miracle.